My fiancé wants a fairy tale wedding. I want a future where I'm not drowning in debt before I even save my first patient. Now he calls me selfish, and I'm starting to wonder if happily ever after comes with a price tag I'm unwilling to pay. My name is Sarah, and I'm supposed to be getting married in 6 months. Supposed to be. The word itself feels like a lead weight in my stomach. The supposed to be is a $60,000 spectacle, a figure that started at a modest $40,000 and somehow, like a rogue sourdough starter, just kept expanding. It's for 150 people, a historic venue with exposed brick and fairy lights that cost more per strand than my first car's monthly payment. It's for peonies in December, a string quartet, and a bespoke cake that looks like it belongs in a goddamn art museum. It's also, increasingly, not for me. Let me back up. When Mark proposed, under the surprisingly clear sky of a late August evening by the lake, it was perfect. The ring wasn't a boulder, but it sparkled with a promise that felt real, tangible. I cried. He cried. We were that couple. The wedding planning started with a Pinterest board, all soft blush tones and romantic calligraphy. Fun, at first, like playing house, but with real money. His money, my parents' money, a terrifyingly small portion of our money. Mark's a good man, steady, kind, with a laugh that can fill a room. He works in finance, makes a decent living, and honestly, he'd give me the moon if I asked for it, and he could figure out the logistics. His family is enthusiastic. His mom, Carol, especially. She's a sweetheart, truly, but her vision for our wedding quickly overshadowed my tentative sketches of something intimate and personal. Suddenly, second cousins I hadn't seen since I was 10 were on the guest list. The catering tasting involved 7 courses, each more elaborate than the last. The phrase, "But it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, dear," became her mantra. And I, like a fool, nodded along, smiled, said, "Oh, that sounds lovely, Carol. Because what else do you do? You're 24, you're in love, and everyone around you is radiating this infectious excitement. You don't want to be the killjoy, you don't want to be difficult." But something else was happening, a quiet counter-melody to the wedding bells. Last spring, after years of pre-med, late-night study sessions fueled by stale coffee, and volunteering at the free clinic until my eyes burned, I got in. Medical school. Not just any medical school, but one with a program I'd kill for, specializing in pediatric emergency medicine. It was the culmination of a dream I'd nurtured since I was a kid, patching up my teddy bears with band-aids and an earnestness that probably freaked my parents out a little. The acceptance letter arrived, tucked between a glossy brochure for artisanal wedding favors and an RSVP from Mark's Aunt Mildred. I remember holding it, the paper surprisingly thin for the weight of the words it carried. A wave of euphoria, so pure and potent, washed over me, followed almost immediately by a sickening lurch of dread. Tuition, living expenses, books that cost more than a weekend getaway. The numbers swam before my eyes, a stark, brutal contrast to the flourishing calligraphy on the wedding invitations we'd just approved. That's when the $60,000 wedding stopped feeling like a joyful celebration and started feeling like an anchor, dragging me down. Every dollar spent on imported cheese platters was a dollar not spent on anatomy textbooks. Every deposit for the ridiculously overpriced photographer was a month's rent I'd have to scramble for. The idea started as a whisper. What if we didn't? What if we took that money, or even a fraction of it, and invested it in us? In my future, which, by extension, was our future. A future where I wasn't starting a demanding, life-saving career already drowning in debt before I even saw my first patient. I let the thought simmer for weeks, turning it over and over in my mind like a smooth stone. I researched elopements, small, intimate ceremonies. The average cost of an elopement in, say, the Scottish Highlands, or a quiet Italian village, around $7,000, maybe $10,000 if we got fancy. The numbers were seductive. Imagine saying our vows on a windswept cliff, just us and an officiant, maybe a photographer to capture the raw, unvarnished emotion. No seating charts, no family drama over who sits where, no pressure to perform, just love, pure and simple. And then, the remaining $50,000? Straight into a designated account for med school. A buffer, a safety net, a goddamn launchpad. It felt right. It felt smart. It felt like the most adult decision I'd ever considered making. Telling Mark was harder. I rehearsed it in my head 100 times. I'd make dinner, open a bottle of wine, sit him down. I'd explain it logically, calmly. I'd paint him a picture of our European adventure, the romance of it. I'd show him the spreadsheets, the stark reality of med school debt versus the ephemeral cost of one day of partying. It didn't go as planned. You want to cancel the wedding? His voice was quiet, too quiet. We were in our tiny living room, the television muted on some reality show. The half-eaten takeout containers sat on the coffee table, a testament to another exhausting day. Not cancel, Mark, I said, trying to keep my own voice steady, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Reimagine, we'd still get married. It would be an adventure, just us. Think of it, Italy or Ireland. We could use the money we saved from my school for our future. I pulled out my carefully prepared notes, the budget comparisons, the photos of picturesque elopement spots. He didn't even look at them. His gaze was fixed on me, a strange mixture of confusion and something else I couldn't quite place. Hurt? My mom, he started, and my heart sank. She's put so much into this. The deposit, Sarah, the save, the dates have gone out. People have booked flights. I know, and I feel terrible about that part, I rushed to say. We can try to get some deposits back, or repurpose them. We'll pay back anyone who's out of pocket. But Mark, this is decades of debt we're talking about for me. For us, this wedding, it's one day. One day? He finally looked away, running a hand through his hair. It's not just one day, Sarah. It's the start of our lives together. It's a celebration with everyone we love. My mom would be devastated. She's been dreaming of this since I was a kid. There it was, the mom card. I love Carol, I do. But this wasn't her marriage. It wasn't her debt. And what about my dreams, Mark? I asked, my voice rising a little despite myself. What about my dream of becoming a doctor without being crippled by loans before I even start? Isn't our financial stability, our future, more important than a party, however lovely? He stood up then, pacing the small space between the couch and the television. So, my family's feelings, our friends' excitement, it all means nothing compared to your career? That's not fair, I cried, stung. It's not an either or. My career benefits us both in the long run. Think of the security, the life we could build. He stopped, turned to me, and his face was hard. You know, Sarah, for someone who claims to love me, you're being incredibly selfish. Selfish. The word hung in the air, sharp as shattered glass. It pierced through all my carefully constructed arguments, my hopes for his understanding. Selfish. Because I wanted to invest in a future that included less financial stress? Selfish. Because I dared to suggest that a 5-figure party wasn't the only way to validate our love or start a marriage? I think that's when something inside me broke, or maybe it solidified. Selfish, I whispered, the fight draining out of me, replaced by a cold, clear anger. Is it selfish to want a stable foundation for our family? Is it selfish to prioritize education and a meaningful career over keeping up appearances? Or is it more selfish, Mark, to expect your future wife to start her incredibly demanding professional life tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, just so your mom isn't sad for a few weeks? He didn't have an answer. He just stared at me, his jaw tight. The silence that followed was awful, thick with resentment and unspoken accusations. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, it's been a cold war. We go through the motions. We sleep in the same bed, but there's a tundra between us. Wedding planning has ground to a halt, an unspoken truce because neither of us wants to touch it. He talks to his mom on the phone in hushed tones in the other room. I spend my evenings staring at med school syllabi online, a knot of anxiety and defiance tightening in my chest. He thinks I'm being rash, that I'm throwing away a perfectly good wedding and hurting everyone in the process. He thinks I'm undervaluing his family, our traditions. He keeps saying, "We can manage the loans, Sarah. People do it all the time." But managing isn't thriving. Managing sounds like treading water, forever. I don't want to just manage. I want to swim. I want us to swim. Am I selfish? The word echoes in my head, a relentless accusation. Maybe I am. Maybe there's a part of me that's terrified of losing myself in the wife role before I even get a chance to become the doctor I've always wanted to be. Maybe I see this huge, expensive wedding as the first step down a path that's not entirely my own. I look at the blinking cursor again. I've typed out my story, my dilemma, onto a Reddit forum, Amethyst hole, or maybe relationships. I haven't decided which yet. My finger hovers over the post button. Part of me is screaming not to. What if they all agree with Mark? What if 1,000 anonymous strangers confirm that, yes, Sarah, you are a selfish, ungrateful bridezilla in reverse? But another, stronger part of me needs to know. Needs to hear from someone, anyone, outside this bubble of familial expectation and romantic obligation. Am I crazy for thinking that a $7,000 elopement and a $50 head start on a debt-free future makes more sense than a one-day extravaganza that will leave us financially winded before we even cross the finish line of I do? Is it selfish to want to build a life based on practical dreams rather than princess fantasies? I take a deep breath. The apartment is still. Mark hasn't stirred. My future, our future, feels like it's hanging in the balance, teetering on the edge of this ridiculous, expensive, beautiful, and utterly terrifying wedding. And my finger, it's moving, closer and closer to post. What would you do? No, really, what would you do?